Highland Park, Illinois, July 14, 2025. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Center.
Here.
Councilmember Breckman. Here. Councilmember Ross. Here. Councilmember Tapia.
Present.
Councilmember Littlewer.
Here.
Councilmember Blumer.
Here.
Mayor Rotary.
Here, we have a quorum. May I have a motion to approve the minutes from the June 16, 2025 meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. We have 3 items on for scheduled business tonight. Let us start with porous pavements, also known as permeable pavers policy review. Say that 5 times.
Thank you, Mayor. So this topic should look familiar. We have talked to the City Council over the years on a number of occasions as we are compiling our capital plan and looking at parking lots and alleys specifically. The current city policy for these capital projects is to use a combination of permeable pavers as well as asphalt. We have a PowerPoint presentation that we are going to use this evening to guide the policy discussion. We want to make sure that everyone has an understanding of the current policy, cost considerations, what projects are remaining on our capital plan, and then we are just looking to affirm the policy as we put together the fiscal year 26 budget and the 10-year capital plan. We have a number of projects. Most notably, we have a project on the council agenda this evening for formal consideration. We are not recommending any changes for fiscal year 25. These projects have all been engineered. They're out to bid. We're planning work underway. But again, we just want to affirm the policy for 26 and beyond. So with that, I will turn it over to Public Works Director Ron Bannon and also City Engineer Manny Gomez to take us through the PowerPoint. And then we'll be happy to answer any questions. Gentlemen.
Thank you, Gita. Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. Yeah, I'm gonna. Oh, this is a new one. I'm gonna go over PowerPoint.
No,
It's not this
just
one?
use the enter.
Ah, okay.
This is to capture use.
All right. Thank you. Again, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm going to go over this fairly quickly, so I hope I'm not, going too fast. Just a little bit of history. We did our first permeable paver lots right across the street here in 2016. We did some rain gardens and of course, our dark sky compliant LED lighting. That was our very first project that had these permeable pavers. The year after that, we followed with the first alley, the Central Court Alley. It's the one that's just south of Central Avenue and parallel Central Avenue. Ms. Ross, I'm sure, is very familiar with that alley. And again, there we did a permeable paver design for that. We received favorable feedback on both projects, as long as as far as how they look, they function. Of course, they were part of our sustainability plan with the green infrastructure components that come with them. So those are good projects. And here are examples of some of the permeable pavements that we have. On the left there is the alley that I just talked about, again constructed in 2017. And on the right, as far as I know, this is the first permeable pavement that the City of Highland Park constructed. That precedes me by about 5 years. I started here in 2015. But that's the Bloom Street Alley. In the middle, we have pervious concrete. And the 2 edges are regular concrete. The pervious concrete cannot sustain the load of, for example, a garbage truck, so that's why it doesn't have pervious everywhere. I think you saw this in 2023, but just as a reminder, the porous pavement is something that has a higher than normal percentage of air voids. Of course, that lets water pass through it, as you can see in this picture here. The different pavement types that are permeable. I mean, there are several types. Pervious concrete, we just saw an example. Porous asphalt, I don't think we have any in Highland Park, not that I'm aware of. Permeable pavers, we have them several places already. And a manufactured glass paver made of concrete or plastic, that I have not seen. Where can we put these? Where do we go? Pavements, permeable pavements, walkways, patios, some plazas. Of course, they can be in driveways, and last but not least, parking stalls. Here we have our central east lot parking lot that we did in 2021, and you can see lots and lots of permeable pavement there where the parking stalls are. Here's a cross section of a porous asphalt. Of course, the porous material's on top. What's right below is what's called a choker course. It's kind of like the equivalent of a binder in a regular asphalt pavement. It provides a platform between the aggregate and the porous material. It kind of makes a smooth surface so you can put the porous asphalt on, and there's other things that go with it. And of course, below that, you have your undisturbed subsoil. Here's a cross-section of the previous concrete parking lot that was constructed in 2010. You can see there from the width that, a little less than, only about 1/3 of it is porous, the 5 feet in the middle. And of course, on each side, we have our regular concrete, and we only had a 4-inch stone base back then. I'm not sure how that design was done, but it's pretty thin, 4 inches. Some advantages of permeable pavers, of course, they increase the water quality with the water soaking through the soil, the stone and so on. Reduces the insulation costs with drainage systems, and sometimes we can get by with just putting the under drains in instead of a full storm source system. It reduces stormwater runoff because there are some qualities where it will hold water under the pavement for a longer time, which of course leads to less flooding and less erosion. Some issues with the permeable porous pavers, I should say. Maintenance, that's one thing. Repairs, you can see on the left slide there, when you have to patch them, take out the bricks and put them back. It's a little more tricky and intense to do that if you want them to go back right and look right. And of course, the lifespan, we have seen some lifespan issues with some pavements, like the Bloom Alley pavement on the right there. I know that's got 15 years now. But anyway, you can see that in the middle, the porous concrete has started to deteriorate and come off. We don't see that with regular concrete typically. What we'll see is cracking and spalling and stuff, not this. Okay, where do we have them? Permeable pavements, that should be where we have permeable brick pavers, okay? That does not include the Bloom Alley I just showed. So currently we have 9 parking lots that have permeable pavers. And as Gita noted, on tonight's agenda, we have that one in red for formal consideration. We had a bid opening and we're bringing it to you for bid award. The alleys, we've done 4 alleys. Maple, which of course was last year, everybody's familiar with that, and there's some others there. Some alleys for potential projects, future projects. We have 2 alleys that remain that are gravel alleys in Highland Park, and they're right here. They're between Waukegan and St. John's, of course, south of Moraine Road. They're smaller alleys. I mean, they're not super big, and they serve a limited number of residential properties, not in a business district or anything, but they are gravel, and eventually, we want to convert them to something other than gravel. Gravel is harder to maintain, doesn't look as good, and it's just better to change them to something else eventually. Parking lots. I mean, we've identified about 16 parking lots that, are still on the books. That could be improved. Again, these parking lots, with the current practice, we would do permeable stalls, pavers for stalls, and then the asphalt for the drive aisles, if we continue with the current practice and policy that we have in place now. Okay, the cost. Yeah, permeable pavers do cost generally more than regular asphalt. It's not surprising, 20 to 50% depending on the size of the project and how it's bid and time of year and other things, right? There's a lot of things that go into pricing. One of the things contributing to the higher cost is, that stone that goes under it. I mean, it's not only providing the material, but you have to take out all the dirt that, comes out to make room for it. The under drains versus the traditional storm sewers, I mean, that could affect the cost. But one thing that might reduce the cost, I mean, not completely where it's equivalent to asphalt, but machines could be used to install bricks, and there's a lower labor cost associated with that. But that operation is much better when it's consistent, like an alley that's straight, the width is constant, you're not changing a lot. You go to a streetscape project, you're going around tree gates, bump outs, light poles. I mean, the machine just can't, the technology is not there for that. Maintenance, there's maintenance associated with these permeable pavers. There's a preventative and restorative maintenance. The weed removal. I mean, you eventually get weeds in between the bricks. You have to sweep them. There's power washing to keep the bricks clean. And then, you have to refill the material in between the bricks, and that goes along with weed control. Every 5 to 10 years is what I'm seeing. For asphalt, I mean, that's, we've been doing asphalt for years and years, so there's a thing called pavement rejuvenation. There's for lack of a better word, a spray they put on the asphalt when it's in a certain age, after being done, and it helps extend the life of the asphalt. There's crack sealing where you put, this black stuff on cracks to keep the water from going down and, causing problems. And of course, everybody knows what a pothole is, and we have to fix those, and then we, patch eventually the pavement. So, what is the policy recommendation being, considered, or at least being discussed? Continue to use the permeable pavers in parking lots and high-profile, high-visibility alleys. Those are alleys that, for example, are in a business district, serve a lot of people, are seen a lot. You don't want them looking ugly where a lot of people see them. They provide, and benefits, of course, they provide good water quality benefits. The performance, they have a good lifespan. I mean, they're bricks, they're hard. The minimal maintenance, I mean, there is some maintenance involved with them, and they look nice. I mean, most people, I never heard somebody say, oh, that looks like an ugly parking lot or alley. So, I mean, maybe some don't like them, I don't know. I like them. Anyway, where we don't want to use them is like in certain alleys. Low visibility, there's not, public doesn't really see it, they're more hidden, they don't serve a lot of people, they're outside of a business district, for example, and but they are more cost effective if you do not use them, because we know that asphalt or something else will cost less than the permeable pavers.
Now this, if you could go back 1 second, just.
How do you go back?
No.
Oh, okay, got it.
So this recommendation that's on here tonight is actually not consistent with what we are doing. Right now, our current practice is to have permeable pavers for all alleys, and then the combination of both for parking lots. But in consideration of the concerns that we've heard from council members about cost consideration, and certainly we are fiscally responsible as well, this was one option that we had suggested, is for those alleys that are not in those high-profile areas. They don't have a lot of high pedestrian activity. They don't touch any really the business districts. That's where we thought we could save some money and then just go back to asphalt. So that's what we're just looking for once we get.
So Mandy, I have a couple of questions. When you spray the asphalt, is coal tar involved, or with the crack sealing, is coal tar involved?
No, the pavement rejuvenation, Mayor, is a different process. It's a special material that they put over, and the asphalt has to be a certain age. It can't be too old for it to be effective. So what they do is they spray this material, it's almost like a seal coat, but it's not a seal coat. Mm-hmm. They spray this material over the new surface after a certain age. And it helps kind of like to extend that surface, the life of the asphalt. I don't know, I guess, equivalent would be like you power wash your deck, and you have it stained, and then you sealed it 1 year, and then you come back the next year and you're okay, instead of having to power wash it and stain it again, you're going to do another seal coat or something like that to extend the life of it and keep it looking nice.
Coal tar wasn't involved with what's being sprayed on the asphalt streets.
Not coal
We
tar.
specify that, including for the crack sealing. It's non-tar based.
Great, okay. Well, I just want to share a couple of comments, and I saw your hand up on this. So obviously, it's always critical to be responsible with tax dollars, and this year, as we look towards the next budget, we're like, squeeze. But I just want to share that the decision that was made many moons ago, I mean, I remember 2010, I think it was 2011, the Bloom Street Alley would flood, and there'd be this like ponding of white grossness all over Bloom Street. So I'm glad we were able to do something, but it sounds like the materials chosen maybe were not quite the right ones given the traffic that's over there. But this is part of a larger effort to mitigate stormwater runoff into the lake, into our drinking water, to mitigate ponding. And I have become somewhat obsessed with looking for pavers now that this question's been raised again. And in Chicago, there are alleys with pavers, and Northwestern seems to only use these permeable pavers everywhere in its parking lots. Ravinia, every time they're doing a new parking lot project, they're using these permeable pavers. It's to slow down the stormwater runoff. And we got some email, like most recently from Highland, Fort Sheridan, around the MYA project, and concern about just how fast and how voluminous the stormwater runoff has become in the ravines. So I think anything that we can do to slow down that runoff hitting the ravines is important. And I just wanted to kind of share also, when somebody does a new development over so many square feet, we also added the requirement that they had to manage stormwater on site. So it's all, that's why this has been sort of put into place as part of that larger effort to mitigate stormwater runoff. I saw Andres and Yumi and then John.
Yeah, I have a question about a slide, but then I have some comments just so I can check off. Can you go to the one where you showed the wear and tear, the Bloom Street
On
one?
Bloom Street. I suspect trucks are not staying where they should be on those
Yeah,
two.
this one here?
But, yeah, but that's not the permeable pavers that are obviously on the left. So when you're talking about wear and tear, is that really part of the story? I mean,
No.
Right? I mean,
No, it's a different material.
okay, so this is part of the story, right?
The pavers.
The pavers, right? That's what we're evaluating.
Right.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, the city had been, exploring different options
Right.
for years, and this was one of the first
Yeah.
ones we
But
did.
now, but this is the problem we're trying to solve here, or comparing the repair of
bricks.
asphalt versus bricks.
I also
Okay,
wanted to show that to try to discourage from going back to something.
okay,
like
got
that.
it. All right, a couple comments. One, over the last whatever years we did discuss this, I appreciate the directional approach here about cost, 20% more of this, but I still wish that we had a more comprehensive cost-benefit analysis. But when you say they cost 20% more, okay, that's a cost, and then there's the maintenance cost, but it's not clear, is the maintenance for asphalt higher or lower? It's like, does it balance itself out? So what is the total of the life of the pavers or asphalt? What is the total cost when it's installing it and maintaining it? Because they might, so the 20%, does it over time get, we get the benefit of that amortized because the upkeep is less. So that's a question I
And then
have.
the third one you want to ask is, and the cost of the stormwater runoff
Fair enough, yes.
versus it seeping into the ground
Yeah.
slowly.
So a true cost benefit, right? What are we getting for the 20% more? Is it really paying off?
Yeah, I mean, as far as maintenance goes, so I will say that of all the paver lots and alleys that you saw in there, and we didn't have Central Court on there, so we actually have another paver alley on there. It's been very minimal. I mean, now the oldest one is about 9 years old, so they've been holding up very well. We just sanded this hazel lot here, which is recommended every 5 to 10 years depending on use. So we will start to see some of those maintenance items come up, but we're doing it with in-house staff. And the sand, when you buy it by a truckload, is relatively cheap. I think it was,
Right, so directionally, it's nice answers, good ones, but it'd be nice if it was kind of a more quantifiable analysis.
I mean, if we said year to date, what's our maintenance cost on these? It's almost nil, other than some staff time to kill weeds and stuff like that. The manufacturer recommends that you spray the weeds. We don't do that. We bought the steamer, so we have employed the steamer here in this, and that's what we did. We came through with the steamer early mornings. We shut the lot. It just kind of knocks the weeds down. It doesn't kill them. I can see more weeds in there today when we came through with summer. But then we went through, ground out some of those, you sweep it heavy bristles with our machine, and then you come back and you add the material.
Yeah.
So, but ultimately, that's the only thing we've done for the maintenance.
And this is a true statement that, weeds are always a problem, but with the steamer and this methodology, is it less of a problem? Are we managing the unattractiveness better than before you had the steamer approach?
The steamer definitely is helping. We got it at the end of last year. I know we did the demo in the rain outside,
Yeah.
but we've been using it this year, and it has been effective. It does kill the weeds. It doesn't kill it down to the roots. It sort of knocks them down. We have to come back through and do it. So we have been adding that to our routine of running that steamer through.
Okay, great. So in terms of just point of view then, there's a question. Obviously we're trying to manage costs, what's good for the environment, right? And things like that. So with the permeable pavers, clearly it's good for the environment. You made the case very clear. And it's attractive.
Right.
So it's an interesting consideration though about when we're trying to maybe manage the cost a little bit more. But right now I'm not so convinced that it's a cost issue because of the more comprehensive thing. But if we embrace that, well, let's do the more less costly installation on out-of-the-way alleys.
The more public facing, having them, and then the non-public
Yeah.
facing,
So directionally, that's a interesting proposal. Like if we're trying to,
like a compromise.
right? Because if it's good for the environment and attractive, but the attractiveness benefit goes away because very few people see it. Directionally, I'll go in that direction. But is it really saving us that much more money because of these other issues? So that's a question mark for me. And the other thing I have is because of the attractiveness part, I've always wondered why do we put the pavers where the cars cover the pavers up, as opposed to the pavers where usually it's the most visible part? Because the more pretty part is covered by cars. Why don't we switch it?
Because trucks can't go there.
Well, one concern we have with putting the pavers in the parking lot drive aisles is the turning movement of vehicles. And especially when you get larger, like if you have, you know, I know you don't have like in our parking lots, we're not full of like trucks. We're not a truck parking lot, right? But you do occasionally have heavier vehicles and even cars and stuff. And that turning of the wheel as they maneuver, I mean, you know, then you have to like start increasing your brick size, and that increases the cost. And there's other potential issues. So we just found it, okay, you pull in the stall, you normally going straight. Right?
Well, and actually, deja vu, because I have that issue in my driveway. Because I have permitted pavers, and just where the car turns,
Yeah.
I have to, every few years we have to kind of pitch it. So, okay, got it.
Yeah.
Final question. This is a more curiosity. How does permanent pavers increase water quality? Like, what does it do?
Okay, what it does is this. The water that goes through the little spaces between the bricks, the first thing it sees is the sand between the bricks. So that's one, consider it like a filter. That's your initial filter. Then as it goes down to that first layer of aggregate stone, it's porous. So as it's going through there, it's like, think of it like a sponge cleaning it, okay? And it goes down to that other layer, and by the time it gets to the under drain, it's gone through several layers of thick stone. So that helps clean it, okay? So there's a cleansing property to that versus it going right into a pipe and then going into our system, going into a ravine, going out to Lake Michigan, for example.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Yumi?
Thank you, Mayor. While I deeply appreciate close attention to the cost of projects, really appreciate close attention to the cost of projects, the permeable pavers have been, in my opinion, one of the most important and smarter approaches to infrastructure paving that I've seen the city do. And I'm going to share, with his agreement, my husband's analogy that using modern day internet and an iPhone versus going back to a fax machine. This is the future. We're a forward-looking city. And I personally will have some serious regrets if we got regressive with this. And you might remember that, maybe not, but when we were talking about the 2nd Street parking lot, I did ask that same question. Why couldn't we reverse it so that what you, but I understand about the heavy trucks on the permeable pavers. Environmentally, you know, far too many roads and parking lots are paved over with asphalt, and it's contributing to flooding. The ground simply can't absorb water as it would normally. As Manny mentioned, our permeable pavers were installed in our back alley at Central Court, you know, with the below grade systems and the filter and whatnot, as the city always does with permeable pavers. It was 8 years ago, I think. And it was certainly a happy surprise to my household. Prior to that, we had such bad flooding. We had a gravel back alley, and it simply wouldn't, there were drains. And it was terrible flooding. I mean, ankle-deep flooding where I had to put in waders and physically cleared the drains because debris would cover the drains, and I'd physically clear them, versus having the entire alley acting as a drain. And I think, I actually think permeable pavers are, in a sense, easier to repair because you just stack the bricks in a pile and they leave no sign of patching after excavating to fix below the surface. With asphalt, you'll always see a patch. It is, in my opinion, a bigger upfront cost, but a smart investment long-term. That, in my opinion, the city saves money. And we already talked about, in addition to the smart use of funds, another bonus is that they look so much better. Most people who live on alleys, by the way, enter their homes from the alleys. It's essentially their front door most of the time. And it's such a pleasure to to see the permeable pavers instead. And so I guess, I think, I'm trying to, aesthetically pleasing, I think the cost savings over the long run are we're saving our ravines from major erosion. That's an issue. And there was a couple of other points I wanted to make, but it's just a smarter system of drainage certainly than asphalt with drains. But we just saw in the news the big flood in Texas, the catastrophic flooding there. We're going to see more big storms in the future, more catastrophic or more deluges of rain. And I was up late listening to CNN and heard one of the local forecasters talking about how one of the reasons that contributed to the huge flood was that underneath was largely impervious stone, that there was nowhere for the water to go. And I'm saying the obvious, but we're going to have more deluges of rain with climate change. This problem's going to get more serious. This is a smart investment for right now and for the future, and for the sake of our ravines and our groundwater, for sure.
Okay, thank you. John?
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. Really appreciate it. I think Councilmember Tapia tackle some of the questions I had, but I just kind of reiterate and echo the concept of sort of a full analysis. I think we certainly have enough data to take a look at how much of this costs us to maintain, like for like, the two different types of lots and surfaces that we have over 10 year, 20 year, 30 year period. And so I think it would be great for us to understand that. Not necessarily because it has to be cheaper or the same cost, but just so we know, like, is it 20 to 50%, or really is it 5 to 10%, and we're getting the benefits that we're describing here in this meeting. So it would be my ask that we get a little bit more data around that, just for the benefit of the group. But I really do appreciate sort of the more balanced approach here in the proposal to not just do this everywhere, but be a little more thoughtful around that. And then I would just say one question on that piece is, I think one of the last slides we showed sort of the future projects, right, that exist post 2025. How are those lining up against the proposal? And maybe that's a future discussion, but sort of what falls into bucket one versus bucket two?
Most of them are going to be under the current policy. Yeah, there are very few.
As planned at the moment.
Right.
That hasn't
Meaning
been
the permeable
Yeah.
solution.
Correct.
Right, because if you look, those are public-facing parking lots.
Yeah.
So you want to have sort of consistency and aesthetics and also continuing with policy thought. So I understand where you're going. It's, the cost of engineering both is going to add more cost.
Yeah.
So we need to kind of come up with which way are we going.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that. I just wanted to kind of understand, we're talking about 16 future lots and however many alleys.
Yeah, they're all public facing, and then, and then candidly, it's possible, but it would just look odd. So for example, at Ravinga Station, Metro Station, if we do a combination of both, and then the policy decision switches to asphalt,
Yeah.
now you've got two lots in close proximity to each other that don't really match.
Yep. Okay.
Tony, and then you.
I forgot
and then
something.
Annette. So, sorry.
Thanks.
I'll call on you guys and then you can circle in. Thank you. Go ahead.
I think, John, you put that well. The issue for me regarding the cost analysis is, I really would be interested to know. I think there are obviously potentially greater costs in the initial installation, but it tends to last longer. That gets figured into it as well. So I would like to understand that as well. The one thing I want to add has to do, I think, a lot with what the mayor led off with. We have had some major flooding issues in Highland Park. ironically not in this area, but it is, a lot of Highland Park is in a floodplain. Anything that we can do to reverse impervious surfaces in Highland Park is important. The flooding isn't necessarily in the area where we're talking about placing permeable pavers. But by placing permeable pavers in higher areas, we allow the water to remain in higher areas and not contribute to the lower areas where the floodplain and the floodways are. So whatever we can do to reduce or limit the inclusion or expansion of impervious surfaces in Highland Park is very important. And that includes both roadways, and impervious surfaces happen on buildings as well. So we need to be looking at those too.
Thank you. Annette?
So I'd like to ask a couple questions about the porous asphalt. Because in the same vein that permeable pavers have been improved in the last 10 or 15 years, I'm assuming that the porous surface, whether this is the sealant or whatever it is, they've improved some of these things also. So I'm wondering if you have costs for maintenance on that, and you did mention using it, and my question is really just as a baseline, how long does that last for? Because you
Does
said,
it work in this climate?
yeah, and does it work in this climate?
The porous asphalt, is that the question?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's our one try at that, and it has not held up well.
So
In
that's
fact,
the one time.
It is, because it was, once it went in, it was, we could tell it wasn't holding up to our winters, and it didn't seem like an appropriate,
And that's the only material that there is.
when you're looking at permeable, different pavers, Mandy, in the slide prior, there's some different choices there.
Right.
But like, for example, when we come back to Bloom, somewhere we have to do something there. So do we just rip all that out and just pave it, or do we go back to a permeable paver? Right now, it does have a permeable feature that's beginning to fail. But do we want to just go asphalt and add drains? Because that's what happens in those alleys, is you'll add, a lot of times, center drains.
Right.
As opposed to like, Central Court, because you're taking water naturally. If you don't have that, you gotta take it with storm sewers like we do, so then you usually will drain, because you want to drain to the people on the sides, you're gonna
Right.
drain it to the middle, so you sort of do like an invert, and then you add a bunch of drains. So, in both,
And
both
then where
will
do
work.
those drains go? Straight to the ravine?
In '23, when we did the presentation, I did some research on the pervious asphalt with other communities and asked what was their experience with it and how was it holding up. And nobody told me it's great, it's holding up great, we recommend you use it. I didn't receive that response from them. I received a response similar to what we have for our pervious concrete, where it's good when it first goes in, but then it declines fairly quickly. I'm not sure of any improvements in that technology. Brick pavers really haven't changed. I mean, the bricks are pretty much the same, and the design has been pretty consistent. I mean, the lot here's going on 10 years old, and it's pretty, you just have to put stone under it.
You know, the rows of Willette.
Right.
Yeah.
So first of all, I really want to thank staff, because I love this sort of, I hate to use this, but cut the baby kind of way of putting it. Because when you're talking about an alley that's got 12 houses on it, I really, and by the way, I don't mean to correct Councilmember Tapia, but you were very clear in saying 20 to 50%. And I know when we've looked at some of the other ones, it was 50%, not just 20%. Now that could be cost, that could be maintenance, but when we're talking about 50% of a project versus, a 20% cost, that's a significant amount of taxpayer dollars in an area that is not high visibility. So I personally think that this is a wonderful option. I'm really grateful to you for both being prudent with the cost, understanding that this is a much better option from an environmental standpoint, but on short little bits, on alleys that nobody sees. And by the way, when we did the Maple Street alley, people took a look at the central alley, which had been since 2017, and it was in horrible condition. And staff was great. They went right away, they took out bricks, they had to level, it was up and down sloping, it was grown over with grass and weeds, and y'all did a great job about cleaning it up. But it was not in great shape, and it was directly in response to acknowledging that there was maintenance with permeable pavers. So the steamer now is a good, again, short window and improvement. And Amy, I don't know what you're looking at, but I'm telling you, I walked it and it was
I
horrible.
live there, so
I know
I
you do.
go out there.
And it
Well,
was horrible.
Let me talk to it when it's.
I'm just saying, staff did a great job of cleaning it up. There is maintenance, and at that point.
I think you guys may be talking about two different places.
Maybe,
I think yours is
Central Court.
Central Court, which is east of Linden, and you were talking about the part that's west of Linden.
Correct,
Oh,
Two different.
correct.
Okay.
And it was horrible. And it was up and down, it was
Which is-
dangerous, you could not ride a bicycle because it had dipped so low.
But
So,
I think those are two different portions of it, and that's why.
And that's why you
You're
got
like,
this
what is she
physical.
talking about?
so I really want to commend staff, but I still have to say that I think that a blanket policy overlooks part of our mandate, and part of it has to do with budgetary reasoning. And I am not for a moment suggesting that we double bid every single thing, because that obviously is
That's
a cost,
unnecessary.
an astronomical cost. But we have wonderful professionals on staff who've now done this in different ways. And even if it's a ballpark, that we're not holding somebody to the exact dollar that they're guesstimating. If a small alley is gonna be $200,000 more or $100,000 more because it's gonna be done in permeable pavers instead of asphalt, I don't think that, in my mind, that's not a good use of our dollar. And so even though there are other benefits when there's small projects, I think that's something we need to take into consideration. What I like about staff's proposal tonight is that I think it does take both of those into consideration, the aesthetic view to the public, the fact that it's a tremendous increase in cost. It is not fair enough to say, or to focus on the 20%. While we could use better numbers, at times it can be 50%, and that's a lot. So for example, doing the parking lot over at Once Upon a Bagel, and that's when we discussed that it did not make sense to do it in the main areas because trucks couldn't curve, cars couldn't curve, it's too heavily trafficked, okay? So finally learned about that. But in very public areas, we did a beautification on 2nd Street. I have no problem putting in the parking spaces because it adds to it. But in these very small areas that there's a lot of curvature, so you can't do it with a machine, to just as a blanket policy, do the pavers, I think is wasteful of taxpayer dollars. So I'm grateful just for this middle ground, even if it's a small middle ground. And it doesn't take away the big picture of our environmental, because it's crucial, but there are significant costs.
So in addition to that, though, I'd like to ask that we have an overlay of flood zone acknowledgement. Because we have people whose backyards, you know, the doors into their homes might be detrimentally impacted by increased ponding and flooding that could be mitigated by having permeable pavers. So I think you need to also kind of take into account, where is it? Is it on high ground?
Right.
Is it in a flood zone?
Absolutely. And I trust our staff and engineers to take that into account, and I have no problem with that.
So Barissa, and then Yumi, and then we gotta wrap up because we have too much things to talk about.
I would just say that the policy that we have as is for the environment, cost up front a little bit more in the long run. I see that it makes sense, the policy. Although I did have a question kind of with the small projects, if we do any asphalt, is there like a list, I don't know, that we could get? Not, I know this next year it looks like it would all be the pavers, but if we were to do some asphalt, like to look ahead of time and say, like, as the mayor just mentioned, like, oh, is this even something we could do in asphalt, or would it be flooding or cause other issues, just so, you kind of have an idea of what that would, look like down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. And we would definitely do that as part of our capital proposal for the budget, yeah.
Okay.
But we can provide you at least what's on the books right now tentatively.
And that's, obviously, we're putting the budget together, so those questions can be, and not all of these are next year, it's like for the future, so. Yeah, Yumi, and then we're gonna, oh, Andres, tiny, okay.
I just want to say the obvious, the problem with flooding is only going to get worse, and the weather is beyond our control.
Right.
And we can't, the runoff that erodes the ravines, we can't get that back. And I did want to mention too, and just keep in mind that as opposed to just a few drains, you have this entire street that is acting as a drain.
Right.
And it's, like I said, the smarter way to go. Huge garbage trucks, I just want to give you a heads up, come down Central Court every week. They used to be small, but now they're the full-scale garbage truck. And ComEd vehicles, all sorts of heavy construction vehicles go down our street. I was worried that we have a relatively new garage with a new apron. I was worried that it was going to, our neighbor had to do some excavation, and worried that it was going to, crack the concrete. It did not. But we get these big vehicles, so either they don't belong on Central Court, or, but they haven't seemed to, I haven't seen really, and I mean, it's high visibility, plus I can see it on my camera, home security. We see the alley all the time. I've not seen the city doing repair on Central Court, nor have I seen the need for it. There are some weeds growing, but not out of control. I've had a front row seat at least to that portion of Central Court. I can't speak to what
To the stuff west of London.
to the west, the other portion of it, but it is interesting that, staff, and I understand is saying, heavy vehicles can't go down it, but they're going down it all the time on Central Court, and it isn't doing anything. So, just saying.
Thank you. Ron, and then Andres.
I was just gonna point out that the area that we had trouble with that Councilmember Littleworth is speaking of was a utility company that came in and opened it up to do some utility work, AT&T or one of them, I'm not sure which one, a gas company, but outside utility firm comes in, they put it back, not correctly, suddenly we have trouble. So there is a little more complexity, like we showed that to putting these back, it's not just a simple asphalt patch, but you have to make sure that the base goes back in so that it's doing the way, the way it's designed. So we have had that trouble, we have our spec, we give it out to these utility companies to try to ensure that that doesn't happen, but that has been, that situation was related to that. Not that the pavement or that the bricks were failing overall, it was the way it was put back.
I do want to say that if heavy trucks are not supposed to be going down Central Court, somebody ought to be
Somebody should
looking at
tell
that.
them, yeah.
But it hasn't seemed to affect.
Okay, and then Andres, if you're tiny
Yeah, no, I just want to see that it seems like there's a majority here that wants to see something more comprehensive cost benefit that's inclusive of
read my
cost.
mind. I was about to say, where are we netting out with all of this? So that's the question, is do people want to have this compromise with sort of the non-public smaller projects, or do you want to stick with the policy as it is? So my question to you is, first, do you support the compromise of the smaller projects, non-public facing, having asphalt as an option? Raise your hand.
And if I could just interject one thing, because I know we hear you loud and clear in terms of a total cost benefit analysis, and as Director Bannon indicated, right now what we'll tell you, based on our own expertise of the lots that we have for 10 years or so, maintenance is minimal. It really is. What maintenance we do it using in-house staff. There's minimal purchase of product, and so the maintenance is very, very low. Now we can put together something in terms of the life of the parking lot or the alley, but again, we're just speculating. Like we bought this machine, we didn't have that before, and so we don't know what's going to come up in the next 10 years to be able to do a true analysis of maintenance over the life of these projects. So I guess my request right now, as we are planning for our 10-year capital, is just with the information that we know today, if you could give us kind of your policy feedback, and of course, we'll continue to provide you what we can.
Okay, so actually I'm going to take the next vote, which is,
Go ahead.
are you supportive of maintaining the policy that we have?
Yes.
You're a yes, you're a yes, I'm a yes. You're a yes,
I
aren't you?
am a yes. I guess what I am just curious about is, how much, square footage or whatever, what are we?
How do you discern what's a small project versus a large
Small,
project?
and does it add up to a ton of impervious surface? Cumulatively, is that a lot? And so that would be my worry. So I would say that currently I support keeping
Keeping
the way
it
it
as
is.
Andres?
But I would be curious to know what.
Yeah, I think it's de minimis, to be honest with you. Looking at the list up here, it's, not a lot of those projects going on in terms of the small, non-public facing projects.
Yeah, I just don't like the position we're in that directionally, environmentally, even aesthetically, I know I'm supportive of this direction and all that we've invested in multiple years. I just don't feel comfortable not having the answer about.
The number.
Yeah, is this, because to John's point, if it's a 10, 15, even maybe a 20% difference, well then the environment and runoffs and, the maintenance and aesthetics.
And it over how many years versus how
Right,
long?
then I'm like, well, that's worth the price, right? But if it's, I'm just gonna make a crazy number up. If it's 50, 60, 70% more, then, we have to kind of look at the fiscal responsibility there as well. And we have direction, but we don't have some numbers to look at.
Right. I mean, I gotta say, was it 2013, Tony, when we first started talking about the square feet, and those numbers were discussed at that point, and the council was as fiscally focused as this council is. So I don't think anybody was like, break the bank, we're gonna save the world, and make it look pretty. No, I think it was sort of a combination of, this is cost effective, this also addresses flooding, this also, by the way, looks nice. I mean, I don't even think people were that focused on how it looked. I think they were more focused on how do we slow down this flow of water, watching the hydrology in terms of both the volume and the speed with which it comes out of the sky and then was roaring around. I think people were like, well, we've got to get a grip on this. So, yeah.
And just as a matter of context, this was being discussed at the time the city of Highland Park was expanding the country club facility for the park district. We have now also expanded that parking lot. As far as I can tell, it does not have permeable pavers in it, which is concerning to me.
In a flood zone.
That building is impinging on the floodway and completely in the flood zone.
And I hear a majority. I know you're not happy about that, right? But I also want to assure you that we're not being capricious with dollars. And I think as we go through each year's 10-year plan, that is part of what is the cost. Is it getting to be too much? What are our other priorities? Is this something that we need to revisit? Pete is like, don't do that, but. But I think, you have that power every single year to say, wait a second, this is getting to be too much and we need to back off. Or, hey, this experience is working out well for us and the maintenance costs are lower and we're dealing with less flooding. I don't need to remind you, in 2011, was that when we were walking around in waders because of all the flooding that was going on? So we've been making those efforts through all kinds of policy changes to mitigate some of the flooding that's been going on. John?
I just want a quick response to City Manager Newberg, because I understand what you're saying. We can't predict or know what the future holds in terms of advancements and things evolve. But we do have the benefit of hindsight today as to multiple projects to give us an order of magnitude of what the costs are for the different options. And I don't want to speak for my fellow council members, but for me at least, maybe my position changes to say, yeah, we should use everywhere because they are basically net neutral. But without the data, the council member talks.
It's hard to have that.
It's hard to make that.
Right. Okay, so I think it's status quo with an eye towards the experiential data coming in and then being very thoughtful as we move forward with our 10-year capital improvement plan. If you have information that can help people with that decision making. And Ron, I'm sure you know this off the top of your head. How much did we spend on parking lots this year versus roads? You probably don't know that off the top of your head.
Nowhere. We have a parking lot.
He knows a bunch.
I do not get to go to the next round.
You do not get to level. No, I just was, because I don't know proportionally, like, are we talking about 10% of the CIP versus 35%? Because we do have a limited parking lot account because people aren't parking as, like if you think about the revenue that's going into the parking lots and the timing and all of that, are we talking about $500,000 versus $6 million and all of that? So.
Mayor, if you don't mind, our parking lot that we're bringing to you tonight is, if I remember right, about $1.4, $1.5 million. And based on a little bit. We're doing about 4.6 in resurfacing right now, 4.6 million, okay? Linden Avenue water main, which includes pavement, that's $3 million.
That's a huge project.
Yeah, that's a huge project.
Right.
Beach. Beach
with the
Lane.
water.
Well, Beach Lane, I forgot how much, that one wasn't as big, I don't remember.
Okay.
I try to remember the bigger numbers.
Yeah,
That
no,
one
I
wasn't so
appreciate
big.
it though, because I
It
think
was-
that kind of helps too, to know.
It was like
how much of a
800,000 or
budget
something
is
like that.
this.
800, something like that for Beach, something like that. It's a small street. It's a
I
small.
knew somebody knew. Just asked,
So,
okay, thanks,
so
man.
those are the numbers that we're seeing right now.
Terrific, okay. And there's always the added piece, John, also of materials will be going up and who knows by what multiple and all of the inflation and all that, so. Thanks, you
All
guys.
right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Complex for a very straightforward
Thank you.
question. Yeah, thanks for raising it.
So we have 2 other topics on tonight's committee of the whole agenda, so we'll see how much we get through before the city council meeting. So both pertain to business development initiatives. I just want to recognize Assistant City Manager Aaron Jason, who oversees the business development division. And then these 2 presentations are going to be presented by our business development staff, so Corey Cohn and also Jamie Elder. So the first one pertains to
I'm gonna flip it, because I think for the budget, you need to know the answer to the third one more than you need to know to the second one.
well, for the budget, yes.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, could, yes. Although there are people waiting for answers for this one too, is
I'm
the only
sure they
thing,
are, but
but.
I think the people who need to know the answers
Sure.
to the budget probably take priority.
Okay, for
Okay, so if you
sure.
don't
So
mind.
if we don't finish this, we could certainly do it at the city council at the end.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, so
All right,
let's
sure.
dive into 3 first. Thank you.
Oh, okay, there we go.
Not to tell you what.
Okay, that's all right. No problem, whatever. It's your meeting, whatever you want. Okay. All right. So, business incentives. So first, certainly as the council as well as aware, the city has a aggressive and robust business development strategic plan. Part of that plan includes strategies as it pertains to business attraction as well as business retention. Incentives is one component in terms of what we use as part of that endeavor, how we use to attract business to the community and supporting our existing businesses. We've been having meetings with the Business and Economic Development Advisory Group with different sectors in the community. And the update to the Business Development Strategic Plan is going to be coming before the City Council at a future Committee of the Whole meeting. So just for the purposes of this evening, really what we want to just focus on is the incentives for the boutique incentive, the food and beverage, and the exterior improvement grant. And so these incentives overall are used in terms of supporting our existing businesses, helping them reinvest in the community, as well as for business attraction purposes. You can see the monetary incentives that are itemized there. We do have the sales tax rebate that's been on the books for several years. That's not a topic for discussion this evening, but if you're interested, we can certainly bring that back at a future time. And then that third bullet point is really what we want to highlight is just the significant work effort that is done in partnership with the chamber and other organizations in the community to support overall our business community. So really working with them hand in hand throughout every aspect of their business process. So if it's a new business, it's working with them, trying to find a location for them, working with property owners and brokers, and then guiding them through the entire community development process in terms of building, permit, and plan review, and then ongoing through a number of different marketing initiatives that are undertaken. And then this is a snapshot of the recommendations that are included in the staff report. So Jamie's going to walk through these. We have a couple of slides, and then we'll end back on this slide so we can get your feedback for budget purposes. Jamie.
Thank you. Welcome, Jamie.
All right, thank you. Good evening, Council and Mayor. Thank you for allowing me to present this very important topic tonight. And so basically, as we City Manager stated, we've collected a lot of feedback from BDAG community members, also our experiences as we work with engage with our business owners throughout this community. And so for the most part, I'm going to go through pretty much all the center programs that we discussed and provide a detailed overview of the policy recommendations, and then you can save your questions and comments to the end. That would be great. And then turn it back over to the mayor, who will walk you through each particular policy recommendation. And so for the boutique incentive, this was approved by the council in 2023. And so it allows for the allocated funds of special incentive packages to attract highly desirable and catalytic restaurant groups to Highland Park. And so as you see at the top, you see a program such, one of the beneficiaries was Danucci's restaurant on 2nd Street. And currently we have under construction the Amy Morton Steakhouse, which is on 1st Street. And so the goal of this particular program is really to attract 2 to 3 restaurants over a 2 to 3 year period, targeting catalytic retail businesses to increase foot traffic, jobs, and also sales in the commercial district. And basically how we award this program is on a case-by-case basis by the city manager and the city council. And this is pretty much covering your staff report. Basically, a boutique incentive, the summary of the particular program. The thing we do want to highlight is that right now, for fiscal year 2026, there's a budget recommendation of $0. And so the first policy recommendation that we're covering is to allow the boutique incentive to expire as designed. So as stated, the boutique incentive was planned or designed to expire after 2 to 3 catalytic businesses were attracted to the community after a period of 2 to 3 years. And approximately July 31st, 2025 is when this program is designed to expire. And there is ongoing assessment of the current contractual agreements. And because we do care about the ROI, we will be reviewing this program after a 3-year period to do a full assessment to make sure we met certain metrics and outcomes. And next is the food and beverage interior improvement grant. And so, as you can see some of the pictures of our lovely restaurants who benefited from it. So we have Indus, a little French guy, Michael's, Braeside Cafe and Market, and then also at the right-hand bottom, you also have our all these Bright Bowls, one of our newer restaurants. And so this particular grant was adopted in August 2024 because the staff and council felt it was very important to provide a new and existing grant that was parallel to the boutique incentive, but an opportunity to provide, basically awards and consideration for those smaller projects that didn't fit into the boutique incentive. And this food and beverage grant provides assistance to food and beverage businesses that provides a sales tax. So that's very important to recognize in this and how it differentiates from other programs.
Consider that part of the answer.
So it only goes to food and beverage businesses that provides a sales tax.
Thank you.
And so the food and beverage incentive program, basically it's providing your staff report, but the goal was really to provide expansion and retention of existing food operators. And you can pretty much see how the grant is awarded with certain caps and reimbursement limits, depending on whether it's a full service business or a limited service business. And it's also available on your staff report. Here's a summary of the particular program, the FY 2024 budget and the award funds distributed, also 2025. And please pay particular attention to FY 2026, our budget recommendation that we do sustain this program at a budget recommendation of $375,000. And so for the particular grant recommendation the policy recommendation that we're making for this particular grant is, and working with BDAG, is do we permit and license fees should be ineligible for expenditure on this particular grant. And so the consensus that we had with BDAG is that permit fees and licenses should not be covered for the simple fact that we believe that it artificially and boosts the value of a particular reward while also not allowing this business owner to have skin in the game, so that they should be accountable for their own fees or permits. And lastly, we're going over the exterior improvement grant. And so, as you can see, again, some of our lovely local business operators, like for Dinks, for example, used to be an old Staples building, and this had great signage. Braeside was one of the few businesses that used the interior and exterior improvement grant. You can see Norton's, along with La Tequiza, who also used the exterior improvement grant to have that wonderful build out for their outdoor dining setup. And so this particular grant was previously known as a Small Business Facade Improvement Program. The program was renamed after it was expanded in 2023 and allows for an increase in measurable expenditures, increasing funding per applicant. And so again, this is covered in the staff report, the broad grant summary covering fiscal year 2024 and 2025. But for fiscal year 2026, we do recommend that central programs continue at a budget amount of $100,000. And so policy recommendation number 3, it's the same as the exterior improvement grant. Do we want to permit and license fees should be ineligible expenditure? And for the same reasons, we agree with BDAG in this particular recommendation that it should not be allowed. And so for policy recommendation number 4, so reclass certain general maintenance projects as ineligible for reimbursement. And you can see the bulleted items that would fall under those to be not to be classified as ineligible for reimbursement. And so our staff consideration that these items fall within general maintenance. Monies for these items are not within the spirit of the grant program to spur reinvestment. And for policy recommendation number 5, so we want to consider mural installation as an eligible expenditure. And so as we're considering this particular incentive, what we evaluated internally as a team is that we know it promotes placemaking and is aligned with our core priority of vibrancy. The city does support mural programs, and we do also acknowledge that we saw in our interior improvement grant as well, how restaurateurs and businesses can design their inside of their stores. But we also recognize that the murals must align with the city's mission and values. There are risks to the city about how public funds are used for subjective and maybe oftentimes controversial artwork. And then also, do these mural grants extend beyond the original intent of the program? Like, is there actual business function?
Let me just add one element to what Janie had said for this. So as you may recall, when the council was considering the mural program overall for the community, we had talked at great length about the fact that we don't have the ability to review content of a mural, right? We can review a permit, but we can't look at the content because that's protected. So as part of this program, we did confer with Corporation Council, and because the city, if there was support for this, because the city would be giving funding for the mural, we do have a little bit more opportunity and flexibility to support a mural or not support it. But it comes with significant risk, right? So one thing that we had talked about is we could tie it to make sure that the mural aligns with the city's mission and values. We like the generality of that because it gives us flexibility, but at the same time, that could also be very debatable. Someone could say, what do you mean it doesn't align with your values? You know, you allow zoning for tobacco, smoke shops, alcohol, you know, things of that nature. And so we just want to share with you, this is possible to do, but there are risks associated with it.
And if I can just elaborate on that, I think in many ways, there's a way to design this program that has less of a legal issue, because then essentially we'd be kind of making more that the city is the speaker. We're going to basically pay someone to do a mural, but I think there's a perceptive risk there with this mural art. That nuance is something that's a world that our office lives in, but the general public may not. They may perceive it as a city discriminating on the basis of speech. So it's something to consider as you look at this consideration.
Okay. And so for policy consideration number 6, do we want to expand the exterior grant program to cover businesses that are not normally sales tax producing? So service-based businesses, for example. So when we did our roundtables, BDAG unanimously believed that the program should be expanded to service non-sales tax producing businesses. But right now it's the staff's recommendation that this program is not expanded beyond current eligibility for outside sales tax producing businesses. But if council is interested in pursuing this particular program for expansions, that would be something that would be pursued separately.
Future committed vote.
I think, sorry, Mayor. I think it's important to note for this, we're not against an incentive in the future that addresses businesses that aren't primarily sales tax producing, but there's something to be considered about in the pros and cons, right? We're in the staff report, but something about planning for it, funding it. We'd rather see something parallel to this. If you're really passionate about exterior, we'll design for exterior and following this, or just let us look at other options and bring them to you so that we can fund it make sure it aligns right with priorities and that it's the best use for that business model.
And so yeah, so these are all of our policy recommendations summarized, and so with that, I'll turn it back to the mayor for
Great.
discussion.
Great presentation, thanks, Jamie. A couple of questions that I had specifically to the exterior improvement grant. Was the number given net, the 20,000 that was given to the neighbors for Oktoberfest? Because I think that was where some of the money had come from.
It was 15,000?
15.
15,
Oh.
and yes, that leaves us with 58,000 and some change in the bucket still for this year.
Okay. Tony?
Yeah, I have a quick question. I thought we went into a different program to award a grant to a restaurant going in on Roger Williams.
Yeah, I thought we did.
We did. We combined several years of the exterior improvements to
Yeah.
create a lump sum, right?
Yeah, the lump sum was 100,
Yeah.
and the amount that equal per year was $20,000.
It
Okay,
was kind of a workaround, I think.
that is exactly what it was. So really, we have provided grants to 3 restaurants that would qualify for the boutique incentive program.
Well, that one did not qualify
It
for the
doesn't.
boutique incentive, that's
Why
why.
did it not qualify?
It didn't have, go
They
ahead.
have.
So they individually, each individual had a significant amount of experience, but it was the first time that all these professionals came together for a restaurant concept. And so having the minimum of years experience as a restaurant, as an entity,
Okay.
was not met. And then
Not
the
three.
minimum.
Minimum sales.
Minimum
they didn't have
sales,
any.
correct.
Already
They didn't qualify at all.
Aaron?
And I would just like to provide a clarification. Council said in committee of the whole that they were open to doing that approval, but they have not actually applied for and you have not formally approved that grant. So that is future approval, and those funds were earmarked out of the carryovers from food and beverage from last year into this year, so not out of the exterior. So if you're looking at where's that 100,000, that exists in the food and beverage grant budget. It's all the same
Okay.
giant budget item, but just to clarify that.
Thank you.
For the sake of going through this in some way that makes sense, Jamie, if I could bug you, there you
Right
go.
there.
So if we could just sort of boom, 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 go through each one, I really, really appreciate it. So first off, allow the boutique incentive to expire as designed. Anybody have any thoughts? You can just say yes or no, we don't have to go into a whole, like, I get a lot about the whole thing. I called on you before, I'll call you, then you, what's that?
Okay, so, when in 2023 did we approve this? August, okay. So it has been almost 2 years. The problem I have with just letting this expire is we have one group that took advantage of it and are performing beautifully, and we can really evaluate something on it. We have a second group that we awarded a grant, but by the time we will be evaluating, which would be in, starting anytime after July 31st, 25, they aren't even in business. And while staff has done an amazing job of looking for a third recipient, and I know we said we have 2 to 3, but we always talked about the fact that a critical mass for downtown restaurants would be 3. And the fact that we have one on First and one on Second, one of which isn't even open, to me is just too quickly to stop this and evaluate it after 2 years when one won't even be open. So I'm very, very pleased with the job that staff has done, but I think that I would really like to see one more year of this program so that we can go back and evaluate it. And for all we know, we won't have a third recipient to council member Tony, to Tony's point, I'm sorry, I couldn't even hear that, to council member Bloomberg Queen. We may not have someone that qualifies. And I know staff has done an amazing job of looking for that third group, and we've come close a couple of times. But in the downtown business district, we haven't even gotten there yet. And I just want to really see that we made a commitment to this, and we've made tremendous strides. But as far as our anchor tenants of the very big ones, we basically have one that we can evaluate, one that we can't evaluate, And I would like to see us spend the time to look for the third one still. And at the end of this year, fiscal year, if we don't do it, I have absolutely no problem with it stopping. But I just want to give the program the full opportunity. We took a hit, we took a risk. We looked at what other communities were doing, and we put a lot of resources into this. And I just want to make sure that we really give the downtown, I'm sorry about my back, but the utmost chance of having this go forward. And that's the only reason I'm opposed to ending it effective July 31st of 25, which is really in 2 weeks.
Right. Okay. Anybody else? Bruce? Oh, wait. No, I said John, and then Andres, and I'll do Yumi, and then Marissa, and then Tony.
Before I provide my thoughts, I could use a little clarity on how the clawbacks work in the current program.
Go ahead. Sure. I don't know the exact dollar amounts, but
Yeah.
percentage-wise, it's year over year. If they do not operate, X amount of years, it's through a 10-year period,
10
right? Or, yeah, 10 years worth of clawbacks. So they have to pay back percentages of what they received from the city. It also includes anything that was purchased, like any furniture or infrastructure that was put in place with grant funding, which in the case of Danucci's was a significant amount of their kitchen, that would all have to stay behind. So a lot of times when restaurants leave, they take as much as they can out, they would have to leave that as part of the agreement that they have with us.
But to the extent that they remain operational, the grants that are provided are paid back over the course of time. Just in some type of loan structure or?
No, this is a grant,
This
this is straight
This
issuance
is a
of
straight
money.
grant. It's a check.
This is not a loan.
Right, so what is the, what
There's
is
a
the
long
10-year
component.
thing?
That is a clawback, so if they close within 10 years,
Yeah,
they have to pay us back money.
but what is there to claw
Based on
back?
this, based on the schedule.
Our
Okay.
grant to them. So 1.5 million, let's just say if they close after 2 years, they would pay 80% of that 1.5.
That's the idea of having a balance sheet on top of it, you've got a corporate guarantee, okay, I get it.
Correct.
And we
So
did
that's why
have a
it's-
corporate
In
guarantee.
theory, yeah, okay,
In theory.
got it.
And that's
Thank
why
you.
we
That's all.
needed the
Thank you.
large enterprise to give the corporate guarantee.
So where are you in terms of
Okay.
expire or no expire?
So I'm with Councilmember Littler in the concept of not yet having critical mass to really assess the impact. I think we know Danucci's has been fantastic and we're seeing a lot of traffic here, which hopefully has halo effects to the rest of the community, retail, et cetera. And I think it's a little premature to sort of pump the brakes on that. The other side of that is what I just kind of understood a little bit more about the structure. I'm not sure they're structured entirely correct. And I'd like to maybe be a little bit more prudent with how we're utilizing those dollars and being thoughtful with the actual structure of the grant or loan or whatever we're calling it. But I would be in favor of extending the program, maybe with some modifications.
Okay, thanks. Aaron?
Sorry, just real quick, because I saw 2 in a row where we talked about evaluation. When Jamie talked about the 3-year evaluation, we mean 3 years from now. So looking at a full look back. So that's with the understanding that the barn is not open and will not be open soon. We also want Danucci's to have a few years under their belt, so I wanted to make sure that was clear. And I also wanted to explain, when we talked about last year, the food and beverage grant came into play last August. That was originally designed as a trailer to the boutique incentive, so that we could transition from we're recruiting to we're supporting because we've already got the eyes on activity. We feel very strongly as staff, we are getting more and more restaurants interested in Highland Park. And do not discount, we ask you not, do not discount the $100,000 and $150,000 grant that we're asking you to still continue. That is a very significant grant and it is very large even for our region still, to have that as an on the books. So I think that's just something I would like you to consider while we do that conversation. Thank you.
If I could just add one other thing, just to make sense there. So as we are working on the budget right now for fiscal year 26, we don't have a line item right now for the boutique. As we take a look at year-over-year expenditures in 25, technically, because those are carryover dollars, we don't have funding for the boutique incentive. And so adding, for example, $1 million to the budget is going to come at the expense of either other programming or events or an increase in the tax levy. So something of that nature. So just keep that in mind. And certainly if the policy is being set, but I just want you to think about how important is this in light of everything else that we're doing.
Thanks. Andres?
Yeah, when this is a big culture change and a big policy change. that we enacted 2 years ago. And there was philosophical reasons that several previous council members and current council members had to not favor this. And that's just part of our policy debate. But the majority went this direction. And whenever you make a big change like that, it is experimental. That's why there was a 3-year, let's see what happens, because it's new. We haven't done this before. And culture change and process change, really, when you look at transformation change, it's a 3 to 5 year process. No matter what it is, it takes that long to turn the ship around, to align, get the right staff, the right processes, the business development, get the word out, hey, we're in business, You just kind of have to get the flywheel going. It just takes a long time. And finally, you start getting some momentum. And I believe that, we kind of made a policy bet on this. And we said, let's give it 3 years. And for us to just cut it short, just when it's starting to really, that's a beautiful list, not only the boutiques, but the other conversation we're gonna have about, we're starting to really attract, and the word is out. We did the Cranes ad, and we got coverage in the media, and then here we are, oh, great coverage, just 6 months ago or 7 months ago, and then, oh, we're stopping the boutique forum. After we made a big deal that we're in business and we have $1 million out there or whatever to attract more. And then we said, well, never mind, we changed our mind. And it's fine for us to say 3 years, and we did the 3 years, and then we evaluated and we said yes or no. But for us to say 3 years, get the word out, come to Highland Park, oh, at 2 years in, we stopped the program. That does not give us the
I
credibility.
think we also had 2 or 3 restaurants. So that was just a.
Well, sure.
But it's not just time, it's mileage. It's like,
fair enough.
Okay.
Okay, we can debate that part, but in terms of transformation change, one can argue that 2 will be kind of good, but 3 starts to be a tipping point, right? And you're looking for a tipping point. You're looking for a tipping point in the city of Highland Park for businesses around us to say, that's a great place to invest. They're serious. They have good programs. They pay attention. They give it breathing room for the program to work or not work, and they're not in a hurry to just turn it off. So I think it hurts our credibility and credibility that we have built. We would be undermining the very PR, marketing seriousness that we put out there and say, never mind. 2 years, we're going to cut it short. I think it'd be very detrimental. That if a few years from now we say, oh, let's restart that, I think people are going to remember, oh yeah, Highland Park, they pulled back. So I'm not in favor of it. And Gita, know that I hear you. So I know this is not a light decision, and there's trade-offs. But business development is one of our priorities. Economic development is one of our priorities. And we made an important bet, and we're serious about it, and we're getting traction. And I think for us to then cut short the pilot, if you will, it's like say, I don't know, I think we lose credibility.
and at some point, if this does move forward, then I'm gonna ask you, where's that million
And that's
and a half
fair.
coming from?
That's fair.
Yumi?
Thank you, Mayor, for calling on me. I actually see this as one of the values of committee of the whole. Hearing the, points of view and hearing the arguments, and I do like the way Councilmember Lidauer put it, that I too want to see, I feel like it's too early. I want to see how the barn does. It hasn't opened yet, I agree. And I think that not phasing it out makes us highly desirable to restaurants that might be considering Highland Park. I mean, everybody knows, hey, that could be me opening in Highland Park. And as far as putting $1 million into the fund, the question is, what are our priorities? And to me, this feels like a priority. The question I've heard the most from Highland Park is each of the 3 times it took me to finally win the seat. But each time was, I want I want more restaurant options in Highland Park. I just heard it every time, and I think this is a priority of it feels to me like it's a priority of the constituents, our residents, and that's why I support doing it. And yes, I guess we do have the discussion, where is that coming from, but to me, it's a matter of, as I said, what are our priorities? To me, that is one.
Eric, do you remember how many restaurants opened in the past year, 2 years?
I bet Corey knows it off the top of his head, but I mean, we've seen Little Szechuan reignite, we've seen La Tequiza come in. Sorry.
Little
I got them, sorry.
That's the bomb.
But we've also seen
Bright Bowls, we've moved.
Bright Bowls
you know.
expanded, French Guy expanded, I mean, we've seen a lot of
Indus.
activity, Indus obviously opening. So I would say too, for the budget, and I just texted this to the city manager, said if it comes up to yes, sorry, I know I shouldn't have texted, but I want to make sure, just for budget purposes, when we're thinking of it, staff recommendation would be, if you were to look at funding for this, that it not be at $1.5 million, that it not be at $1 million. I mean, I'm a firm believer, and I think it's best practice in economic development. First one in gets the largest amount. We gave 1.5 to New Cheese, we gave 750 to the barn. I wouldn't go higher than 750, I would consider 500. I think that is more than fair, and it's still a significant investment. So that's just my 2 thoughts on that. But Corey, I don't know if you're thinking of other restaurants that I'm not thinking of.
Yeah. No, but like, you get my point.
Yes.
It wasn't like, oh, we need this $500,000 for that one restaurant, because we have so much expansion in terms of our restaurants. So I just wanted to kind of put that out. I don't want us to miss the chance for others to speak, and we're running out of time, so let's
I am also gonna say, and I agree with what Annette and Andre said, and everyone that spoke so far, I think we should continue this. Restaurants are, what makes the vibrancy of Highland Park, and people are excited about more and more restaurants, and we have to, 3 years was the intent, and we're not there yet, and so I think we should continue this. And with what Aaron said, if we change the amount to 750 or 500, I think that makes sense too. The budgeting.
And just remind me, it was 3 years, 2 to 3 restaurants?
It was 2 to 3 years, 2 to 3 restaurants, that's how we presented it.
Okay, thanks. Tony?
Well, so starting with that, we have 3 restaurants. Even if this 3rd restaurant didn't qualify for the program, you all made this change. You all agreed to take money out of a different part of this incentive program to bring this 3rd restaurant in. That's the 3rd restaurant. It is the 3rd restaurant. It's a big deal. It is a big deal, and the purpose of accommodating this restaurant by using that money was to get them here, and if that's the critical mass, we're there. I feel what I felt all along. This program is fiscally irresponsible. It was never intended to be permanent. I don't believe municipalities should be funding private businesses, and that's what this is. And you're funding private businesses that historically are difficult, dangerous businesses that have a high degree of failure. I understand that we have tried to improve the chances of success by taking businesses with an established track record, but restaurants, established restaurants with well-known restaurateurs fail regularly in short periods of time. And although we have a clawback program, it's hard to claw back from a failed business. I would rather see, if we're going to be spending $1 million a year, that it go to our inclusionary housing program. My priority is not that I'm opposed to businesses in Highland Park or that I'm anti-business, but my priority is residents. Ultimately, I want to serve our residents. And this, in my opinion, does not do that. It is irresponsible. It has fostered a tendency by those who support this program to ignore budgetary systems that we put in place. And that makes me uncomfortable. This was never intended to be a permanent program. And if we are going to start funding businesses to attract businesses to come to Highland Park that wouldn't come here on their own, I think that's irresponsible, and I can't support this.
Thank you. I agree with Tony. I have a huge concern about where is this money coming from. Given the budget constraints that we know we're up against for this coming year, given the volatility of external forces and what those impacts are going to be on the community, to me, it feels like we achieved our goal. We got 2.5, almost 3 restaurants to come in to be the catalyst. We all support small business. We all support vibrancy. Can't wait till the little red ball shows up there and we're all talking about how vibrant we are. But I have humongous concerns about where is this money going to come from? And I will not be comfortable raising the property tax rate beyond what we've already budgeted. We have people on fixed income who are going to be facing greater challenges going forward. We just talked about our priority of infrastructure investment and the fact that costs of materials and goods and labor are going up. To me, this, I agree with you. We've always been in the boat of why are we giving taxpayer dollars to private businesses? Knowing who the investors are, this $500,000 has a much greater impact, I feel, on our budget than it will have on the likelihood that these restaurants will open in this community. So I appreciate your enthusiasm. I really do, and I appreciate that we were thinking outside the box. It brought us, to my view, the fruit of what we were trying to achieve. John, the look on your face when you said, explain to me the clawback. And it's like, they have failed, they have no money, we're gonna get our money back. What's wrong in that equation, right? That doesn't work for me. So we're the minority, you guys have the majority, and so that's where the policy goes. But I just want to firmly agree with Tony and say, I have huge concerns about where this money's coming from, huge concerns for our budget going forward, and I just don't feel comfortable saying I'm fiscally responsible and now I'm going to hand over $500,750 to somebody who very likely could fail and we would not get that money back.
No, I think great comments. I mean, what about my point around trying to restructure how these are looked at? I mean, look, there's still risk associated. I'm not denying that, but I mean, and this is obviously a later policy decision, but can we think about that?
But I don't know, like, we talked about loans and we talked about grants. And when we started to offer loans, they were like, we're good, we know bankers. They wanted money. They wanted cash up front that then could accelerate their ability to move forward. I understand, if I were on that side, that's where I would go as well. They're not interested in loans. They can get loans wherever they want.
Well, no, Indus wanted a loan, and we gave them a loan at a much lower rate, and there were other places where we looked at loans too, maybe not for those 2 big ones, and the reason, and we actually went back through the contract and made sure there was a guarantor when we do this clawback.
There's a lot of different ways where you can structure capital. That's right.
And I'll be honest, we looked at that,
Yeah.
We floated that out there, we got the responses back, and some people walked. They were like, we don't want to play.
We like the marketplace. What do you
Yeah,
say?
we went to the marketplace and there was somebody that everybody wanted. They only wanted $1.5 million in cash.
Well,
Well,
then
it doesn't
they're
work
not,
for them.
they don't work for us. right? So
And we didn't move forward with that.
Yeah.
But the other piece of it that Andres will talk to you about is what's the return on investment in terms of what you're giving, what you're getting back, what the likelihood is of success and all that. That all was analyzed before we put this in place. So, yes.
Just a suggestion relative to what John has raised. I don't know if it's possible or how profoundly expensive it might be, but instead of a clawback, why not insist on a bond? If you go out of business within 3 to 5 years, there's a bond there. We do that with developers so that we make sure they complete the development. Once the development is completed, they get the bond money back. But if they don't complete it, we get the bond money to return the site to Parkland.
I don't know if it's feasible given how restaurants.
I don't know.
Mayor, if I may, why don't, just because,
Okay.
if you don't mind, I can share the economic incentive agreement with the whole council, so you have it. It's generally the template that we use for both of the incentives that we gave. And then if you have recommendations for additions or changes, just let us know. And we'll certainly come before for a policy discussion if or when we have something.
But at this point, I hear the majority doesn't want things to expire. We have a couple of pieces up here that I think we can give you answers to in like short order. Permit license fees, ineligible expenditure, are people in support of that? Yes? Okay. Okay. Permanent license fees, again, yes?
Yes.
Reclass the following as ineligible for reimbursement?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
mural installations as an eligible expenditure.
Oh.
Yes.
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 I'm opposed.
Can I just make one comment? It's called the red bubble. And to me, murals represent a lot of vibrancy. And we had the hard substantive conversation about murals a few months ago. And I thought that was a tough discussion, but I thought we got great legal counsel. And I think what we came up with made me feel comfortable. So I'm not looking at murals with your hat on. I'm looking at it with the hat on of our businesses and our restaurants, and that our revenue, tax
How
revenue.
expensive is a mural? And I understand it can, be a Picasso versus,
I don't know,
me.
I
but-
can't answer that, but I think that in line with our vibrancy bubble, to me, the thing that screamed out most was murals.
And I think we already
I'm
have,
just saying.
we've already approved murals. I don't think we
Right.
have to pay for the murals. And I have a concern about the city providing our funding and then having any kind of say over content, or not having say over content, and tax dollars going for things that are really abhorrent.
I'm looking at it again, not as a speech issue, because I feel we have a policy on that. I'm looking at it as an artistic and a beautification thing for our community. And to me, vibrancy is spelled out with the word mural. So that's the only reason.
But I
I'm
don't
raising
think you can wave a wand and say we're not involved with the speech issue. If it's our money going towards something,
it. Well, we have a policy, then we shouldn't have murals. And
No,
you're
we're-
just saying because it's
no,
one
there's
step further,
there's no
it's money.
nexus. If we have no nexus, then people will do what they're going to do. But if you're using tax dollars,
For 50% of it,
but still,
yeah.
somebody put something horrific up there, and it's like, thank you, great use of my money, when you could have, I think that's a problem. Anyhow, I don't want to take over. Andres and then Tony.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to legal advice and legal and risk, it's really about how risky is it, And while it is a risk, think about the business decision of a business owner. As a business owner, they're not going to put something offensive, and they're not going to put something ugly out there, because the whole point of putting a mural is to be an attractive place for people to come. So I think it's a theoretical risk, but it's not a plausible risk, because what would be the motivation of a business owner to put something offensive to our community, or something contrary to our values, or something really ugly, when the whole point is to beautify the storefront?
So if somebody wants to come for an awning and we don't have the money because we gave it to a mural, I just think you need to think through the priorities of what these dollars are for.
But we
And
always
is
said
it-
first come, first served, Nancy.
But that's my point. Is that if you've got, someone who's like, boom, 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 we've got our 5 murals, there goes your grant pool and it's gone. Is that?
For that year, that's what we do.
Okay.
To me, it's all beautification.
I'm gonna take a quick straw vote because dinner's waiting for us. So you're a yes.
Yeah.
What do you know?
I'm a no on the city funding it. I voted for the mural program, when we voted on murals and heights and whatnot. But it's another thing to have the city, pay for it. And I think that half the city, or a good number of residents, don't pay too much attention to what we do, but then we'll suddenly see a mural on a wall and ask, how did this get there? And oh, the city paid for it, helped pay for it. That's too far for me.
Okay.
And I would like to see the funds used for exterior improvement.
For more substantial?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna ask for yes, no answers in the interest of time.
Yes.
Okay. I know you're a yes.
Yes.
Marissa?
No.
Okay. Tony, I know where you are. You're a no. And I'm a no. So on that one, abstain. Sorry, James. Don't give me the look.
I was here for the pavers.
All right. And now you can sleep well tonight. All right. Expand exterior grant to non-sales tax producing. I am a no.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Sure.
Why was so many members at the BDAC meeting in support of wanting it?
Vibrancy.
Great
Support business.
Feet on the street.
Okay, that's it?
Probably.
I would say yes.
Can I- One aspect we see that we would like to,
Giving money to
if there's interest in this, that we would want to
non-sales
focus
tax
on, not as this grant, but as a separate grant, is signage. So signage is one of the biggest barriers, people, name recognition and understanding and branding.
Yeah.
And that's where people don't leave no money on the table for that always. So in particular with non-sales tax producing businesses, we hear that a lot of times they don't have money for good signage, they're, et cetera. So
Got it.
that was an incorrect one.
I just wanted a historical point of context relating to the small business facade grant. That was open to non-sales tax generating businesses, but the maximum grant amount at that point was $5,000. This was expanded to $20,000 for the exterior improvement grant.
Okay. And at one point, we did have zoning specific to sales tax producing businesses, so that has always been a priority. I'm going to ask for yes and no's. Are you a yes or no?
How was it worded? I do believe in expanding, but the reason is if we're trying to beautify our city and then you go through CBD or RBD or other parts and then some are really bright because they got the new awning and they got the expansion and all this, and then the other ones can't afford anything to do that. Why, if it's vibrancy, coming back to vibrancy, we want a vibrant downtown. We can't say, well, that store is vibrant, that one is that one, but that kind of looks a little bit sad because, they have a really sad sign. And it's like, so there is the tax creating business argument, but there's also the overall vibrancy argument that we're making, that we want to elevate the look. Now, I would make a case that they don't have to be as eligible to as high a number of $1. So
This is expand. So
Right.
there's currently, it's 5, right?
No, it's 20.
It's 20. It's 20, so you could expand it beyond 20?
no, I'm saying
No.
they could be eligible for a lower amount. So non-revenue producing, services may not necessarily qualify for the full 20,000, like the ones that do produce a tax revenue, but we still make a move in the direction of saying, hey, you want to sign, you want to awning, 5,000 is probably kind of they maybe benefit from the previous program.
Well, it's
All right, we're gonna
This
quickly-
is, and if you could just, and I know, and especially in the interest of time, and I just don't want you to think like you're under all this pressure to make a policy decision and that's it. So if you say yes, we will come back with further information specifically about this. Well, do you want city funds to go towards non-sales tax generating businesses? Because generally, we've limited it to sales tax generating businesses because that's an additional revenue stream for the city
Right.
that comes back to help fund all these programs.
Right.
That's the whole.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, so you need yes or no?
Oh, gosh, I'm torn on this. I hear your argument. I'm open to it. I'm not ready to commit until I have more information, I guess.
So I don't know what that is.
I'm really not sure. And BDAG did support it.
I'm going to come back to you.
Come
I'm
back to
sorry.
me.
John?
I'd like to learn more.
You two are killing me. All right, Annette?
I'm a no.
You're a
And
no?
I do want to say why, because it's killing me, but, the whole reason we justify this, and first of all, I could see bringing this program down to 10 grand max, by the way, per recipient. That I could see doing as cost-saving measure, but even with that, I am a no for the tax, because the reason we justify this, we say we're getting something back.
Right.
We're giving taxpayer dollars, but
And we
your
love
sales
feet
are
on the
great.
street and we love vibrancy, but I also have a
It's
hard.
a different
again,
issue,
The
financial
budget is
is.
going to be really hard if we keep
But
giving more money
I would
away.
like to see consideration of bringing it down from 20 to 10.
All right, so that's,
Because, I think the average number of grants, did anybody go for 10?
all right, Marissa?
I'm a no also because everyone would be getting this money back, so it should just be for businesses that are giving us.
Producing sales tax revenue. You meet, or are you yes or no?
That was helpful actually to hear more, and I'll no, yeah.
Okay, John? Still need more info?
I'm no. It's fine. I'm no.
Sorry to do this to you.
It's okay. It's okay.
All right, so we clearly have number 1 to come back and figure out.
Perfect, yes.
But we are at least helping you with the budget from 2 through 6. We did not discuss parking. We will get to it. Do you want to talk about it after the council meeting tonight?
That would be great.
Okay, so we will come back to committee of the whole. I'm fine. Committee of the whole to talk about that because we also have closed session. So that'll just be You can come back for that too, James.
Not
Yeah,
closed
just a quick
session.
F&B interior question, I know we're all trying to eat dinner. Some of the costs that are included, HVAC, painting, flooring,
Those are off.
they're all out? We just took them out?
Yeah, got it.
Okay,
We're
okay,
done.
okay.
You were here and you
Thanks.
voted, take them out.
I mean, if I can recommend, you could recess this to the conclusion of the council meeting and then call us a part of the committee of the whole if you want.
Let's do that.
Okay, you should take that.
All right, I need a motion to recess.
Move to recess.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
See you later.
And that'll be,
See you later.
that'll be until the conclusion of, when we pick up
That is
the,
until closed session.
of the city council meeting.